The series begins with a woman named Farida İpekoglu who takes the childhood memories of her granddaughter, Nalan Yilmaz, after her parents died in a car accident. She places these memories in a box and buries it underground, planting a tree over it and watering it until it grows. Years pass, and the tree grows tall in the garden of the house. Meanwhile, Farida continues to exert excessive control over her granddaughter Nalan's life. She even assigns Hafiza, the housekeeper, to protect and clean her. Farida weighs Nalan and finds that she weighs 53 kilos and 300 grams. She scolds her, insisting that 53 kilos is the ideal weight and that she must lose the extra 300 grams. She warns Nalan against eating sweets or drinking any juice with sugar. Farida then makes her wear a chastity belt to prevent any young man from getting close to her or having a relationship with her. When Nalan recalls the first time she wore the chastity belt, Farida tells her that all men are bad and want to harm and rape girls. Nalan expresses concern that she might need to use the bathroom at school and wouldn't be able to do so because of the chastity belt. Farida advises her not to drink too much water and to endure until she gets home. She warns her to stay away from boys and not to touch them. She also warns her not to tell anyone that she is wearing a chastity belt. When Nalan returns to the present and goes to have breakfast, she tries to pour herself a cup of tea. Farida scolds her, saying that tea is not good for her and forces her to eat cucumbers and tomatoes. When her grandfather Adel asks to give her a plate so he can serve her some eggs, Farida stops him, insisting that Nalan needs to lose the 300 grams she gained. Although Nalan sits at the breakfast table, upset because of the chastity belt, she is afraid to speak up. After finishing her breakfast, Farida accompanies her to her car and advises her to take care of herself and not allow any man to get close to her, no matter what happens. At the same time, there is a person named Taco who is carrying out his daily duties in the house of Mr. Rafet Koroglu, who carefully selected him from the orphanage and raised him in his home to help him control everything. Taco enters the kitchen where Gulsahan, Rafet Koroglu's wife, their daughter Selin, and the housekeeper Dondo are. He weighs the food to be served at the breakfast table and counts the olives to be placed there. When he leaves the kitchen, Gulsahan orders Dondo to quickly take the groceries she bought with her daughter to their rooms. Dondo sneaks behind Taco because if he sees her, he will cause trouble for her. Taco is with Rafet, helping him dress and updating him on the household news. At that moment, Rafet sees a picture of the woman his grandson Sadat loves, whose name is Jana. Rafet is naturally upset because he disapproves of this relationship. At the dining table, Celine asks her husband Levent if he has been drinking. He assures her that he hasn't, but Rafet is focused on the issue of Sadat and Jana, and he is agitated with everyone. When Sadat appears, Rafet directly addresses him, reminding him that he had warned him about Jana because she is older than him, married, and has children. Rafet demands that Sadat leave her immediately and without discussion. To resolve this issue at its root, Rafet asks Gulsehan to call Nurdan, the wife of Mr. Wali, and ask for her daughter Yasmin's hand in marriage for their son Sadat. When Rafet leaves the house, he orders Taco to return to the dining room and listen to the conversation. Taco returns and overhears Sadat, who is agitated and unhappy with Rafet's decision. Sadat tells his mother Gulsehan that he is not suitable for Yasmin, nor is Yasmin suitable for him. Celine, his sister, tells him that he brought this upon them because if he hadn't chosen to be with a woman as old as their mother, like Jana, they wouldn't be in this situation. His mother, Gulsahan, tells him that he made a mistake, must bear the consequences. She makes it clear that his father will not back down from his decision. Sadat declares that he will not marry Yasmin, even if she is the last girl on earth. Gulsahan becomes angry with him, calling him a coward. She says that if he wasn't a coward, he would have confronted his father with what he is telling her. Taco goes out to Rafet and informs him that both Gulsahan and Celine agree to Sadat's marriage to Yasmin. At the same time, Dondo goes down to Muzaffar and leaves his breakfast in front of his room door. Seconds later, Levent knocks on Muzaffar's door, telling him that he needs his help with work, but Muzaffar doesn't respond. When Levent gets tired of waiting, he walks away from the door. Meanwhile, Nalan is with her friend, Palor, who is driving them to work together. When Palor talks about her relationships with boys, Nalan advises her to reduce the number of relationships and focus on just one so that she doesn't regret it later and can better control her life. Later, Sadat meets Jana and tells her that he will get engaged in 5 days. However, Jana's calm reaction surprises him, and he tells her that her response is strange. He explains that he expected a more intense reaction from her. Jana tells him that she is also married, and he should go ahead with his engagement and not oppose his father. She reassures him that their relationship will continue because they are adults and not obliged to follow anyone's orders. She advises him to hasten the marriage to relieve his father's pressure, which will certainly lessen after the wedding. At work, when Pelor sees Nalan talking to Sadat, she jokes with her and suggests that he must have invited her to dinner. Nalan corrects her, saying that she doesn't go out with boys. Pelor is surprised and asks how a girl her age doesn't go out with boys. Nalan changes the subject, saying they need to get back to work quickly as they are running late. A few seconds later, Selin calls Nalan over, using the excuse that she dropped a pen. Nalan tells her that the pen isn't hers. Selin then asks which department Nalan works in. Nalan replies that she works in the architecture department. Selin calls another employee and asks for Nalan's file. Meanwhile, Levin tells Rafet that the bank has refused to give them a new loan. Rafet becomes upset and insists that they need the loan to build the new hotel. Selin suggests that Rafet should appear on TV shows to explain his investment plans, which would convince the bank to grant the loan. Sadat proposes that they turn to an investor named Mart, who has been eager to partner with them for a long time. Rafet decides to follow Selin's suggestion first, but then asks an employee named Gallup to investigate Mart and his activities in the market. Rafet then calls Gulsahan and asks if she has contacted Nurdin to ask for Yasmin's hand for Sadat. Gulsahan replies that she hasn't called yet and was waiting to finish her housework first. Rafet scolds her, reminding her that he said the engagement must happen within 5 days, and then he hangs up on her. Naturally, Gulsahan becomes frustrated and talks to herself, saying that Sadat doesn't love Yasmin, doesn't want to marry her. At that moment, Selin enters with a file in her hand, giving it to her mother, telling her that they will soon be rid of Yasmin, will marry Sadat to someone else. When Gulsahan opens the file, she finds a picture of Nalan and is impressed by her. In the office of Nalan and Pelor is very curious about Selin. She tells Nalan that Selin usually has a stern expression, doesn't talk to anyone in the company. She was very friendly and couldn't stop smiling with her. Pelor speculates that this might have something to do with Sadat, wishes that he remembered her, is trying to get close to her through his sister, Selin. Nalan smiles and tells her that it's a very unlikely possibility. However, this possibility is close to Selin, who is at that moment with her mother, Gulsahan, trying to convince her about Nalan as a wife for Sadat. She tells her that Nalan has never been in a relationship with a young man in her life. She is always smiling and as kind as a princess. Her mother asks if Sadat knows Nalan. Selin says he doesn't, but she is the perfect girl for Sadat, and Rafet Koroglu would definitely approve of her because she is a million times better than Yasmin. Gulsahan hopes that Sadat will love Nalan and that Rafet Koroglu will approve of her. She tells Selin that she knows Sadat's taste in women very well. At the same time, Farida is waiting for Nalan, monitoring her movements through a tracking app. When she sees that Nalan has changed the route she usually takes to come home, she wonders why. Farida goes down to meet her as she enters the house. However, Nalan is thirsty from work and rushes to get some water to drink. Later, Selin sits with her brother, Sadat, tells him that she wants to save him. She explains that she has found him a bride who is as beautiful, kind as a princess. Sadat, however, dismisses her and refuses to go along with her plan. He also tells her that he doesn't want to get married. Selin gets upset and tells him that he will always be a failure in love and will end up with Jana, who is as old as their mother. But Selin doesn't give up easily. At dinner, she hands Nalan's file to her father, Rafet Koroglu. Rafet reads the file and remarks that Nalan is a good girl and an employee in his company. Moreover, he knows her grandfather, Adele. Selin seizes this opportunity and tells him that her brother Sadat is fond of Nalan, but was too shy to tell him this morning. Rafet is surprised and says that Nalan is more suitable for Sadat than Yasmin. Therefore, he has no objection to their marriage. At that moment, Sadat enters the room. Rafet asks him why he hid his admiration for Nalan. He decides to call Adele and personally ask for Nalan's hand. When Adele answers, Rafet brings up the topic immediately. He tells him that his son Sadat saw his granddaughter Nalan at work, liked her, but was too shy to approach her. Rafet proposes that they become in-laws and suggests that Nalan and Sadat have dinner together at a restaurant tomorrow. If they get along, they can make it official as soon as possible. Adele agrees to this request, and Rafet ends the call, informing him that Sadat will call Nalan to arrange the time and place for dinner. Sadat calls Nalan and invites her to dinner. Adele gestures for her to accept, so she tells Sadat that she agrees. All of this happens while Farida, her grandmother, watches the situation unfold, boiling inside with anger and shock. After Nalan hangs up with Sadat, Farida asks her to go to her room. When she is alone with Adele, she scolds him for what he did. She tells him that she won't let her granddaughter have dinner with a stranger in a restaurant, that she won't leave her honor unguarded. She leaves him and goes to the kitchen, where she kicks out Hafiza and starts breaking all the glasses in front of her to release her anger. Hearing the noise, Adele follows her into the kitchen and tells her that if she doesn't let Nalan live her life and get married, he will take her, leave the house, leaving Farida alone with her delusions. At the same time, Nalan calls her friend Pelor, tells her what happened. Pelor is thrilled for her, says that Nalan isn't as easygoing as she thought. Nalan asks her to stop joking, explain what happens during dinner dates, because she doesn't know what to say to Sadat when they sit together. Pelor jokes again, saying that Nalan will become famous in a few days, and all the fashion designers will chase her to design her wedding dress. She assures Nalan that she will be with her before meeting Sadat, helping her get ready and understanding everything. Meanwhile, Rafet finishes dinner and gives orders to the rest of the family to start preparing for Sadat's marriage to Nalan. After he leaves the table, Celine teases her brother, saying that his choice is excellent. Sadat, feeling frustrated, tells his mother that he doesn't care about Nalan or anyone else, leaves the table to meet Jana in the garden. In the garden, Jana repeats the same advice she gave him before, asking him to marry the girl his father has chosen for him. She promises to stay with him even after he gets married. The next day, Farida repeats her daily routine, forcing Nalan to wear the chastity belt. Nalan tells her that she has never gone out with Sadat or any other boy before. Farida instructs her to maintain her manners when she goes out with Sadat for dinner. Nalan assures her that she has always listened to her. At this moment, Nalan recalls the only time she took off the chastity belt for a physical education class. When Farida saw her, she ran over, slapped her, and pulled her hair in front of her classmates. She then took her to the car to continue the beating, threatening Nalan that if she ever removed the chastity belt again, she would kill herself and leave Nalan without a mother. Only then would Nalan learn her value. The next morning at breakfast, Sadat sends Nalan a message telling her she can take the day off to prepare for dinner. Adele advises her to respond politely and let Sadat know that he will drive her to the restaurant. When Sadat reads the message in front of his father, Rafet is impressed with Adele's upbringing of Nalan. He asks Sadat to treat Nalan kindly and take care of her. Later, Sadat complains to his mother that his father imposes everything in his life on him and always accuses him of being a failure. His mother comforts him, saying that his situation will change after marriage and he will have more freedom. She advises him to finalize the marriage arrangements quickly and live his life. At the same time, Palor goes to Nalan's house to help her get ready for dinner and to advise her on what to do with Sadat. However, Farida surprises them by giving Nalan a dress she had kept for a long time and asks her to wear it. Sadat sends a message to Jana, informing her that he will have dinner with Nalan that night. Jana advises him to propose to Nalan immediately and not hesitate. When we return to Nalan, we see her dressed in the gown. Farida, seeing how beautiful she looks, becomes anxious and leaves the room. However, Hafiza and Nalan are very pleased with how she looks. Before dinner, Celine informs Rafet that she has told the journalists that Sadat will have dinner with his future wife. Rafet is impressed by Celine's cleverness and tells her that this ensures Sadat cannot back out of marrying Nalan. At dinner, Sadat welcomes Nalan and asks her to relax and not be nervous. Nalan admits that this is her first time going out with someone, which is why she is nervous. Despite Sadat's reassurance, she remains tense, so Sadat asks her to calm down, saying he might get nervous too. As the food arrives, they begin to talk. Nalan speaks about her life and her eating habits. Sadat surprises her by asking if she is a real person, saying she is unlike anyone he has known before. He tells her that he feels genuinely important and lucky to be dining with her. Nalan tells Sadat that he is a good person and not as harsh as he appears at work. It soon becomes clear that their admiration is mutual, as Sadat tells her that she is different and attractive. She tells him that he is handsome and gentle. However, they are both surprised by the presence of the press outside the restaurant, especially Nalan, who is shocked and dazzled by the many cameras around her and the endless questions from the curious journalists. The next day, Taco supervises the kitchen because they are preparing a lot of food, which is unusual. This is because they are hosting Nalan's family. He goes to Rafet and gives him a report on the food being prepared. Rafet asks him for the newspapers and reads the news about Sadat and Nalan's engagement. He tells Taco that he needs to hear Nalan's acceptance himself. On the way, Farida is upset and says that it should be the groom's family visiting the bride's family, not the other way around. Adele tries to calm her down, reminding her that Rafet, Sadat's father, is a good and respectable man. Farida replies that he is just a wealthy person who is arrogant and doesn't know proper manners. When they arrive at the mansion, Farida asks Adele to drop her off and park the car at his leisure. She takes Nalan with her and instructs her to keep a distance from Sadat, warning her that he might try to touch her before marriage and she must prevent it. Nalan reassures her that she will be careful. At this moment, Rafet is waiting for his guests. He instructs everyone to warmly welcome their guests. When Taco enters with the guests, Rafet stands to greet them. However, Farida, feeling tense, holds Nalan's hand tightly to prevent anyone from shaking hands with her. Rafet is puzzled by this behavior, and when Sadat tries to greet Nalan, he hesitates because of Farida. Farida continues to act strangely, refusing the hospitality prepared for them before lunch and asking to rest in their designated rooms. She suggests they meet again later. Afterward, Farida tells Adele that Rafet's family has a secret that she needs to uncover, and she must find out if Sadat is a well-mannered young man. She criticizes criticizes Adele for dressing formally and making a big deal out of it. Despite the rooms being clean, Farida changes the sheets and pillowcases, saying that these people are not trustworthy. Adele is puzzled by her actions but tolerates them. Meanwhile, Hafiza congratulates Nalin on her engagement and tells her that she will be marrying into a good family. She advises her to prepare herself for her new life, which will certainly be better than her life with Farida. Before they go down for dinner, Farida insists on bathing Nalin herself and making her wear the chastity belt. At the dinner table, Rafet mentions that Sadat saw Nalin at the company but was too shy to talk to her. Farida uses this story against Sadat, saying that modesty sometimes hides great arrogance. Gulsehan intervenes, telling Farida that her son is not arrogant as the media portrays him, but rather sensitive and well-mannered. Rafet then advises Nalin to take care of Sadat because he is dependent and didn't learn to tie his shoes until he was 10 years old. Farida expresses concern, but Gulsehan quickly adds that he was joking. After dinner, Nalin asks Farida to remove the chastity belt, but Farida refuses, saying that as long as they are staying at Rafet's house, Nalin must sleep with it on. Levin tells Sadat that he finds it strange how Nalin can be Farida's daughter. Sadat agrees, saying he thought the same thing because of the big age difference between them. Selin intervenes and explains that this can happen sometimes when a woman marries late and has children. Of course, none of them know that Farida is actually Nalin's grandmother, because Nalin always calls her Mama and calls Adil Papa. Later, Selin sits with her brother Sadat and tells him that Nalin is a golden opportunity for him to build a home and start a family. Sadat confesses that he is still attached to Jana, doesn't know what to do. Selin warns him that he might break Nalin's heart and expresses her wish for Nalin to become her sister-in-law. Meanwhile, Farida stands with Adele, expressing her fear of Sadat, worrying that he might enter Nalin's room and assault her. Adele tries to reassure her, saying these are just baseless fears in her mind, urges her to think rationally. Sadat sits alone, contemplating his future. He wonders whether he should continue his life with Jana, who is married, has children, and is older than him, or with Nalin, who is inexperienced and has never been with anyone else. At the same time, Nalin dreams of Sadat trying to kiss her. She wakes up startled, quickly taking a shower while still wearing the chastity belt. When Hafiza wakes up and finds Nalin not beside her, she becomes worried and asks what happened. Nalin explains that she dreamt of Sadat trying to kiss her, but woke up before he did. She feels guilty and scared that Farida might find out about the dream. Hafiza reassures her that no one will know. Late at night, Taco knocks on Nalin's door and tells her that Rafet is fasting and will break his fast soon. He invites her to join him for suhoor and then take a walk on the farm. Nalin asks Taco to inform her parents and get their permission. Taco wakes Adele, who agrees to the plan. Adele then tells Nalin that he has given his consent. When Nalin goes down to Rafet, she finds him making bread by hand. He invites her to help him and begins to share his life story, explaining that he comes from a poor family and had to work to support himself and his household. Nalin remarks that he has only achieved success after much hardship. She is surprised to see him weighing the ingredients he uses. Rafet explains that he weighs everything because it's the right way to do things, leaving nothing to chance. He continues to share his struggle, telling her how he had to wake up before dawn when he worked in a bakery. At the end of suhoor, Rafet surprises her by asking how she would handle it if Sadat were to cheat on her. Nalin responds that she doesn't see him as unfaithful, but even if he were, she would turn to Rafet for help. As they walk together on the farm, Rafet asks Nalin why the children in her neighborhood used to call her the girl by the window. She laughs and says he seems to know everything. She explains that she used to spend a lot of time standing by the window and loved being inside the house and looking out the window more than playing in the street. That's why they called her the girl by the window. At the same time, Farida wakes up and tells Adele that he made the biggest mistake of his life by allowing Nalin to have suhoor with Rafet and go for a walk with him. Before returning home, Nalin asks Rafet if he is hiding anything about Sadat. He assures her he has nothing to hide and tells her that all he wants is for them to be happy and comfortable. He asks her not to hide anything from him either and to come to him immediately if any problem arises. When they get back home, Nalin can no longer bear the chastity belt and asks her mother if she can go to her room quickly to remove it. Farida goes with her and asks if Sadat joined her and Rafet on their walk. Nalin swears that he did not and assures her mother that she did nothing to upset her. After breakfast, Rafet tells Nalin's family that they want to visit their home to officially ask for Nalin's hand in marriage to Sadat. He then asks Sadat to take Nalin for a walk. Nalin, fearful of straying too far from home, asks if they can stay close by. This way, Farida can see them from where she is sitting and watches as Sadat puts the engagement ring on Nalan's finger. On the way home, Farida criticizes what happened and says she cannot understand the lack of manners displayed by Sadat's family, allowing Sadat to propose and put the ring on Nalan without their permission. Suddenly, Adele stops the car and asks Farida to calm down and think rationally. He also tells her that God will hold them accountable for what they are doing to poor Nalan. Meanwhile, Sadat meets Jana and tells her that he proposed to Nalan as she had instructed. He asks if she is jealous now that the engagement is official. Jana replies that she is a mature woman, not a teenager, and jealousy is not in her nature. When Sadat presses her, she slaps him, and surprisingly, he asks her to slap him again. It becomes clear that he is not mentally stable and that his relationship with Jana is unhealthy. The next morning, Nalan is surprised to find that her office at work has been moved to the floor where the Oglu family, the company's owners, are located. She's delighted to see her office filled with flowers and congratulatory cards. When she tells Pelor that she wants to continue working, Pelor is surprised and reminds her that she is now engaged to Sadat Oglu, and the work can wait until she feels up to it. At the same time, Sadat is with his father, Rafet, at the barber. Rafet talks about Sadat as if he were a child, which annoys Sadat. He dislikes the way his father speaks about him, but Rafet continues, instructing the barber to cut Sadat's hair to his own liking. Meanwhile, Nalan is sitting with Pelor in a cafe, sharing what happened with Sadat. She tells Pelor that Sadat kissed her in a dream. She felt embarrassed. Pelor assures her that she won't leave her side and will guide her on what to do when she meets him again. At that moment, they are both surprised by the presence of journalists waiting for Nalan outside the cafe. Pelor advises her to leave quickly before more journalists arrive and tells her to keep smiling the entire time. Nalan follows Pelor's advice precisely and manages to handle the journalist well. On the day Rafet goes to Nalan's house to officially ask for her hand for Sadat, he visits his son Muzaffar, tells him that he should come out of his room and join them so people can get to know him. However, Muzaffar opens the door but doesn't respond, forcing Rafet to leave. Sadat is in his room getting dressed and ready when Jana calls him, asking him to take off his shirt and show her his back. When she sees it, she laughs and tells him that the mark she left on his back the last time they were together is still visible. This makes it clear that the mark is from her. Despite this, when Sadat arrives with his family at Nalan's house, he keeps looking at her as if he truly loves her. However, Farida changes the subject by asking about Muzaffar. Celine explains that Muzaffar is unwell and that's why he didn't come. At that moment, Rafet formally asks for Nalan's hand for Sadat. At the end of the visit, Sadat asks Adele if he can take Nalan out for dinner. Adele agrees, despite Farida's obvious disapproval and discomfort, which is evident from her looks. Before Nalan leaves, Farida makes her wear the chastity belt and warns her not to get too close to Sadat or give him any chance to overstep boundaries. She gives her a strict 1-hour limit to return and threatens to kill her in cold blood if she disobeys any of her instructions. Farida also calls Nalan and asks her to keep the line open so she can hear her conversation with Sadat the entire time. When Nalan goes out with Sadat, they are surprised by journalists following them throughout the journey. Sadat suggests taking Nalan to his private house where they can talk freely. Farida, listening in, is upset by this turn of events. Nalan is exhausted from wearing the chastity belt and asks Sadat for the bath. As soon as she enters, she immediately throws up. At that moment, Farida demands she returns home quickly, causing Nalan to cry and not know what to do. When Nalan leaves the bathroom and doesn't find Sadat, she accidentally comes across the torture tools he uses with Jana. Back home, Nalan wakes up from a nightmare, and her friend Pelor is there to help and look after her. Adele scolds Farida for being upset and depressed about Nalan going out with Sadat. When he notices she is lost in thought, staring into space, he asks her worriedly if she has started seeing Salma again, like in the past. Farida admits that she has due to the recent problems and immediately heads to her room, calling Hafiza to come with her. Meanwhile, Pelor asks Nalan why she hasn't shared what happened with Sadat or about the nightmares waking her up. Nalan replies that everything that happened was normal and not worth mentioning. She explains that she left his place because her stomach hurt and she had to return home. Nalan then begs Hafiza to remove the chastity belt because she is in pain and can't bear it any longer. At that moment, Farida appears and Nalan pleads with her to remove the chastity belt. Farida agrees but examines her body to see if Sadat had touched her. She then orders Hafiza to bathe Nalan. When Hafiza asks if Sadat touched her, Nalan insists that he did not, except in her dream. She explains that if she could stop the dream, she would, and if she could prevent herself from sleeping to avoid the dream, she would do that too. The next morning, Jana is surprised that Sadat took Nalan to their private house. Sadat explains that he had to, because the journalists were following them. When Jana asks if Nalan saw their special room, he says she did by accident. Jana gets upset and tells him to be more careful next time and not make the same mistake again. She moves closer to him, unaware that a journalist is photographing them. Jana asks Sadat to buy a gift for Nalan and give it to her, and to find out what she plans to do after seeing the room with the torture tools. Sadat agrees to do so. Meanwhile, Rafet prepares to appear on a television show to defend his investments after the scandals involving Sadat and Jana, which have caused banks to refuse new loans. He warns Gulsahan and Selin that if Sadat repeats the same mistakes, he will have to take drastic measures. Before the show starts, Selin is surprised by an envelope sent specifically to her and her father, Rafet. When she opens it, she finds photos of her brother Sadat with Jana. Noticing her shock, Rafet asks her to show him the contents. When he sees them, he is even more shocked but has no choice but to proceed with the live program. At the same time, Farida takes Nalan to the gynecologist. She tells the doctor that she wants her daughter's virginity examined. The doctor replies that she won't conduct the examination without Nalan's consent. Nalan feels forced to agree and asks the doctor to do as her mother says. Nalan recalls the first time Farida forced her to undergo a virginity test. She complies with the doctor, quickly performs the examination, and tells her that everything is fine. Farida thanks God and tells Nalan that she must wear the chastity belt and go to work. Meanwhile, on the television show, Rafet discusses his projects and investments in Turkey. He tells the host that after earning a lot of money, he began to seek values and principles. He emphasizes that one of the most important values is social solidarity, stating that one should not sleep while their neighbor is hungry, and stressing the importance of maintaining one's family. At this point, the director asks the host to focus on Rafet's family, but the host refuses, and the interview proceeds smoothly. After the interview, Celine tells her father, Rafet, that whoever sent the photos of Sadat and Jana likely wants money. He instructs her to resolve the matter as quickly as possible. Returning to Nalan and Farida, they leave the gynecologist's clinic, only to find journalists waiting outside. They ask if Nalan is sick. That's why she came for a checkup. She gets into her car and heads to work. Midway, she stops the car and cries due to the immense psychological pressure she is under. At that moment, Sadat messages her, asking to meet quickly for coffee. When she arrives, he apologizes for taking her to his house because of the journalists. He gives her the gift that Jana suggested. Rafet returns home in anger, showing Gulsahan the scandals involving their son Sadat and Jana. He accuses her of failing in her upbringing, spoiling Sadat and covering up his scandals, which has dragged the family's reputation through the mud. Gulsahan then asks Celine to seek help from her brother Muzaffar, as he is the only one who can calm their father and talk sense into him. She explains that if he doesn't intervene, they will all suffer the consequences. When we return to Nalan, we find her still drinking coffee with Sadat. Finally, she gathers the courage to ask him about the red room with the torture tools. He tells her that he had rented the house out, and those tools belonged to the tenant. Nalan comments that the tenant must have been someone dubious, because such things are used for inappropriate activities. At that moment, Pelor appears, and Nalan introduces her to Sadat, who then excuses himself and goes to his office. Pelor looks at the gift Sadat gave to Nalan and is very impressed. Later, we see Adele returning home, only to be surprised by Farida asking Hafiza to help her search for the spell Sadat's family allegedly cast on Nalan to make her agree to marry their son. Naturally, Adele is annoyed and tells her to think scientifically and forget about superstitions. Meanwhile, Selin knocks on Muzaffar's door, telling him they are in a big mess and need his help. She leaves an envelope with photos outside his room. After she leaves, Muzaffar opens the door, takes the envelope, and goes back inside. Finally, Muzaffar emerges, holding the photos, and goes upstairs. He overhears his father talking about the photos and the new scandal Sadat has caused. Muzaffar tells his father that his thinking is wrong and that this problem cannot be solved with money. He explains that if the photographer wanted money, he would have asked for it. He advises them to think about how they will handle the situation once the photos are published. When Sadat arrives, Taco hands him the envelope containing the photos. Sadat tries to find an excuse to justify his situation, claiming the photos are old and that since his engagement to Nalan, he hasn't seen or met Jana. He adds that he and Jana agreed that each should go their separate ways, which is why he left her. However, his father doesn't believe him and hits him in front of the whole family. He points out that Sadat is wearing his engagement outfit in the photos and questions when he will man up and take responsibility for his reckless actions. Rafet then asks Taco for scissors and cuts Sadat's credit cards, also taking away his phone. At this moment, Muzaffar intervenes, asking his father to calm down. Rafet listens to Muzaffar and orders Sadat to go to his room immediately. In his room, Sadat calls Jana and tells her that someone took photos of them together and sent them to his father. Jana is surprised and asks who could have done such a thing, reassuring him that she will be by his side so he doesn't need to worry. After hanging up, Sadat recalls his childhood, seeing himself as a young boy facing his father, Rafet, who scolds him for getting beaten up by the girls again. Sadat tries to defend himself, explaining that there were too many of them and he couldn't stand up to them. In the present, Nalan is afraid to sleep, praying that if she does sleep, she won't dream of Sadat. However, she ends up dreaming about him again. At that moment, Farida suddenly wakes her up, takes her to the bathroom, and puts her under the shower. She asks Nalin what she was dreaming about and tells her she knows how to get rid of those filthy dreams. Meanwhile, Rafet asks Gulsahan to take Nalin and buy her a wedding dress as soon as possible, explaining that they need to do this before Nalin's family finds out about Sadat's scandals. The next morning, Gulsahan calls Farida and suggests they go out together for lunch and then shop for the wedding dress and other wedding necessities. Farida agrees to the outing. Before they leave, Rafet instructs Gulsahan and Selin to be friendly with Nalin and her mother. Uncharacteristically, he advises them to buy the best items available, regardless of the price, because Nalin will be their son's wife and they need to honor her. Rafet then asks Selin about the stock prices. She tells him that the company's market value increased after his television appearance, where he talked about his investments. Rafet expresses his hope that the photos won't go public this week, as he's about to meet with many businessmen and negotiate deals, and he doesn't want his image tarnished in front of them. Selin assures him that he can trust her to resolve these issues. Before leaving, Rafet instructs them to keep Sadat in his room and not let him out, even considering locking him up there until the wedding day. Meanwhile, Nalin is with Hafiza, who is bathing her at Farida's request. Nalin recalls her past experiences with Farida, making her drink strange concoctions, telling her she needed to drink them to cleanse her sins and stay pure, as Kausar had said. Farida would then sit her in a large basin and perform strange rituals. In the present, Farida turns to Kausar again, bringing her to the house to perform a cleansing ritual for Nalan. When Adel sees this, he asks Farida why she has returned to Kausar. Farida explains that Nalin needs to be pure and free from the devil's whispers that cause her bad dreams. As Kausar begins her ritual, she tells Farida that Nalin is envied and gives her a talisman to wear under her clothes, warning her only to remove it when entering the bathroom. At the restaurant where Gulsahan and Selin are having lunch with Farida and Nalin, Selin notices Jana at the entrance. She quickly goes out to ask why Jana is there. Jana tells her that she came to ask for help because her father has apparently lost his mind. She accuses him of being the one who sent the photographer to take pictures of her with Sadat. Selin is shocked and tells Jana that she is sick and needs treatment. Jana confidently responds that she is the one who told Sadat to marry Nalin, hoping that Rafet would be satisfied and leave her and Sadat alone. After choosing the dress and leaving the atelier, Nalin is surprised by journalists asking her about her visit to the gynecologist the previous day. Gulsahan hears the question and reassures Nalin, who explains that it was just a routine checkup, that she is fine. At dinner, Rafet continues to accuse Gulsahan, saying she is responsible for Sadat's behavior because she spoils him. Selin asks him to calm down, reminding him that they are preparing for the wedding and that Sadat's problem will be resolved soon. Later, Nalin calls Sadat to check on him and thanks him for the lovely day she spent with his mother and sister, picking out her wedding dress. Sadat tells her that this is just the beginning and that their future will be full of happy days. After the call, Nalin reminisces about the happy moments with Sadat, smiling and feeling content. The next morning, Omar, who works with them at the house, brings Nalin the daily newspaper. She places it on the table without paying much attention, but catches a glimpse of Sadat's picture on the front page with Jana. She quickly picks up the newspaper and studies the photo closely. At the same time, Taco is in his room, happily singing. Dondo knocks on his door and hands him a copy of the daily newspaper. Seeing the picture of Sadat and Jana on the front page, Taco becomes fearful, recites a prayer, and tells Dondo that some people make mistakes and others suffer the consequences. Dondo takes the newspaper, rushes to show it to Gulsahan. Within seconds, the house is in chaos with phones ringing simultaneously. The same news about Sadat and Jana is sent to all family members. Back with Nalin, she shows the newspaper to Farida. Upon seeing the news, Farida tells Adel that she always suspected Rafet Koroglu's family while he tried to calm her. Now she declares she won't calm down and will run the house by her rules. She tears up the newspaper and asks Omar to throw it away. Farida notices many journalists outside the house and tells him that they are likely there to see the girl whom Rafet Koroglu's family deceived into marrying their teenage son. She instructs him to send them away without giving them any attention. Farida then takes Nalin's phone and asks her to remove the ring Sadat gave her. She tells Nalin that she won't return to work until someone from the Koroglu family contacts them and explains exactly what is happening. At Rafet's house, Gulsahan turns to her son Muzaffar for help. She asks Dondo to wake him up to assist with the crisis. Dondo returns, saying that Taco has gone to Rafet's room to inform him about the news. As Taco enters Rafet's room, he hears him singing in the bathroom and in a good mood. Taco wonders how to break the news that will spoil Rafet's mood. Just then, Rafet's phone rings, and Taco sees that the caller is the head accountant. When Rafet comes out of the bathroom and gets dressed, he tells Taco that he's thinking of buying land and gifting it to Nalin. Taco agrees, but Rafet notices that Taco seems unsettled and asks why. Taco tells him that the pictures of Sadat and Jana have been published in the newspaper, on the front page no less. Meanwhile, Dondo is pleading with Muzaffar to think of a solution to their predicament. After much persuasion, Muzaffar agrees to intervene and solve the problem, asking her to call Sadat to come and talk to him. Nalan asks her grandfather Adel for advice. He tells her they need to wait and confirm the news, and she will have to decide for herself whether to stay with Sadat or leave him. Sadat is talking to Jana, who advises him to take things lightly and tell his father that he met her by chance at the restaurant. Sadat responds that his father, Rafet, will never believe that story. Jana suggests they reduce their meetings for a while until things settle down. She also advises him to call Nalan and tell her any plausible lie to explain the situation. Rafet, now extremely angry, questions his family about what he will tell people, his business partners, and Nalan and her family. He blames Celine for promising to solve the issue, yet the problem has escalated into a scandal published in the newspapers. He orders Levent to call Galip and have him threaten the newspaper with withdrawing their advertisements, along with filing a lawsuit against them. Rafet then instructs Taco to open Sadat's room so he can come out and talk to them. However, Sadat is calling Nalan as Jana suggested. Farida answers and immediately hangs up on, blaming Adele for agreeing to the marriage in the first place. At that moment, Pelor arrives and asks about Nalan. Adele tells her that Nalan is not well and asks her to go to Nalan's room and check on her herself. At Rafet Karoglu's house, Sadat finally emerges from his room and tells his sister Celine that he will tell the press that he is a personal friend of Jana and her husband, that he met her to help resolve an issue between her and her husband. Levent laughs and mocks his idea, but Sadat speaks seriously, explaining that he even tried to call Nalan to explain this. Celine gets upset with him, saying he shouldn't act on his own and should wait until they all decide what to do. When he asks about his father, they tell him Rafet is in a meeting with his brother Muzaffar to find a solution to the problem. Rafet and Muzaffar are indeed together, discussing the situation. Muzaffar shares his plan with Rafet to get them out of this crisis. He suggests inviting Adele, Farida, and Nalan for dinner, along with Jana. He advises completely ignoring what the press says, which will make everyone doubt the validity of the published news, causing the scandal to die down before it escalates. Meanwhile, Peeler tries to convince Nalan that this must be a conspiracy, explaining that Jana is older than Sadat and has 2 children, which means he cannot be in a romantic relationship with her. She insists that the whole issue is a fabrication by a journalist seeking fame. However, Nalan is upset and unconvinced, telling Pelor that she feels unlucky because just after getting engaged and starting to build her life, her fiancé was exposed and shamed in the newspapers. When Levent learns about Muzaffar's plan, he gets angry, calling it crazy. Gulsahan asks Celine to make her husband shut up before she kills him. Celine then explains that if the dinner happens, it will significantly nullify the scandal because if Jana sits with Nalan and her family at the same table, it will negate any romantic relationship between Jana and Sadat. Muzaffar then sits with his brother Sadat and asks him what he really wants from Nalan. Sadat admits that she is beautiful, comes from a good family, and marrying her would be advantageous. Muzaffar tells him that if he wants to keep Nalan and marry her, he must follow his advice. He asks Sadat to call Jana and convince her to attend the dinner, as this will dispel any notion of a romantic relationship in front of everyone, especially Nalan and her family. At the same time, Pelor suggests to Adele that she takes Nalan out for a change of scenery, proposing a boat ride. Adele agrees and says he will rent the boat for them himself. At this moment, Celine calls Pelor and tells her that she wants to meet and talk with Nalan. Pelor agrees, saying they can meet in the garden since they are heading out. Sadat is sitting in his car with Jana, asking her to attend the dinner his father is organizing to prove to everyone that their relationship is purely platonic. Jana agrees, saying she will come for his sake because she wouldn't leave him alone in such a difficult situation. After Nalan enjoys her outing with Pelor on the boat, they take a walk in the garden. There, Nalan is surprised to see Selin, tells them that the news published in the newspaper is fabricated. Selin explains that they will file a defamation lawsuit against the newspaper. She assures them that Jana is a family friend and there is no romantic relationship between her and Sadat. She also emphasizes that Jana is married and has 2 children, making it impossible for her to have a relationship with Sadat. At home, Rafet asks his daughter Selin about her meeting with Nalan. Selin tells him that she managed to convince Nalan that the news was just a journalistic fabrication and that their plan is working perfectly. Rafet then asks his son Sadat if he has also invited Jana. Sadat confirms that he was able to persuade her to attend. Rafet scolds him, blaming him for all the problems they are facing. He then asks Gulsahan about the gift they will present tomorrow, since the dinner will be held under the pretense of celebrating her birthday. Gulsahan responds that he can get anything because the whole thing is just an act, and the main goal is to get out of the trouble they are in.